How's it going, guys? So today what we are going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at development, and specifically we're going to take a look at cognitive development. So a major thing that we need to understand when we are looking at this idea of how we grow and change over time, especially mentally. For the longest time, children were expected to act as miniature adults. There was no real strong understanding that the way that a person is as a child is very different from how they are as adults. And there was this expectation that children were to be buttoned up, they were to be proper, they were to say the right things. But as we've studied, the brain doesn't finish forming until you're around the age of 25, and it doesn't go from not ready to completely ready. There is a progression. And so when we are looking at our progression, one of the things that we need to recognize is the things that we take for granted now are not things that we were readily understood when we were younger. So what we're going to take a look at today is a psychologist by the name of Jean Piaget. And Jean Piaget was really a pioneer in cognitive development, studying how children grew and developed as time went on. So he created what is known as the discontinuity stage model. And the discontinuity stage model is basically just how we grow and change over time. So we have all these different stages, and Piaget believed that in each of these block stages, we worked on and developed certain areas of cognitive ability, and then we kind of jumped to the next one, worked on that cognitive ability, and then jumped to the next. Now, to give you an idea, after Piaget's work, most of what he talked about is accurate. Most of what he talked about goes in the progression that he's talking about, but he was a pioneer. He was the first person to really study this. So the age ranges in which I'm going to put up and talk about are not super accurate. We are talking about the age ranges he came up with. Some of his ideas are not wholly accurate. He was the first person to really dig into this, and so a lot of people came in behind and dug into his work and found some other things. Lev Vygotsky is one of the major ones that you guys need to study. So let's get started. We're really just going to look through these different stages, and then we're going to be good to go. So here we go. Okay, so we're going to start with the sensorimotor stage. So sensorimotor stage, what is happening is the child is sensing the world around them. They are sensing the world around them, and then they are reacting in some sort of physical manner. So sensory motor. So during this time, Piaget really didn't believe that children, or babies really, were thinking, were cognitively processing the world. It's literally just a stimuli comes up in front of them, they sense it, they hear it, they smell it, they taste it, they see it, and then they just have some sort of physical reaction. I mean, you put anything in front of a baby, what is it going to do? It's going to grab it, it's going to put it in its mouth as it tries to understand the world. And so during this stage, Piaget posited, oh, well, babies aren't really thinking, they're just reacting. Later studies are going to show that babies do actually process and think about things and are confused by things, but Piaget didn't believe so. So there are two major milestones in the sensorimotor stage. The first is going to be object permanence. Object permanence is fairly simple. You see here is a phone, and then now it goes away. Does that phone exist? Yes, of course it does. That means you have object permanence. The understanding that things that are not in your field of vision still exist. And so once again, when you see something and then it gets out of your field of vision, you still understand that it is there. children develop this during the sensorimotor stage around 6-ish months of age. This is why the very fun game of peekaboo can be very exciting for young babies, because what is happening is the person that is playing peekaboo with them, when they go behind their hands, they no longer exist, like they are gone. They do not have the understanding that that is the person behind them. And so when you come back, you are literally coming out of the ether. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this is super crazy and wild. And so it can be very exciting for children. Schemas we talked about are kind of the building blocks of how children organize the world. So we break the world down into concepts, and we talked about that over the thinking, where we have items that we put together, and we kind of like build, we put them all together. So this is like a backpack, this is a t-shirt, this is a beard. And there are so many different types of backpacks and beards and shirts and all of this stuff, but we just kind of clump them together. Now, for children in the sensorimotor stage, they are first beginning to kind of combine things into those types of groupings, and this is what is known as a schema. So schemas are just much more broad concepts. An example of this might be dogs. So you have a child that has a dog at the house, so they know what a dog is. Now, anything that has 4 legs, is hairy, is probably going to be considered a dog. They see a horse, they see a moose, maybe even they see a cat. That's a schema. Those specific items, having 4 legs, having hair, that's a dog. And so they're beginning to create these concepts. They're beginning to create these categories of things in order to help them better describe and understand the world as a whole. And oftentimes it can be somewhat humorous, as they, call a horse a dog, when, that's not what it is. So that is the sensorimotor stage. So next we have the preoperational. So the preoperational is the most fun. There's the most like interesting things going on here. And so think about the preoperational stage as the children are beginning to recognize the world. Like if you are looking at a child that between the ages of 2 and 7, this is when they're asking all the what and why questions to their parents. They're trying to soak up as much information as they can. They are really fundamentally learning languages. They are beginning to set up the foundation for how the world works, the framework of how the world works. And so they ask lots of questions. So it's a very fundamental time in a child's development. Now, we have a few terms here that we need to make sure that we cover. Sense of self. This is the recognition that we are a person. The things that we do make an impact. And so a child during the preoperational stage, early in the preoperational stage, is going to develop their sense of self. They're going to take a moment and recognize that person on the other side of that mirror, or that person that I've taken a picture of, that is me. I'm a person. I do things. I have I have a will, I have a desire, like I'm going to make an impact on this world. And so what happens is now that they've developed that sense of self, they still have not developed the idea that other people are people too. And so this goes in with egocentrism. So egocentrism is just, hey, I can't put myself into your shoes. I cannot understand your point of view because I am still developing my own point of view, and I have not recognized that other people have it. So you'll get instances where children don't recognize the fact that they've hurt someone else. You'll have a kid that wants a toy, so they punch their little sibling, or they punch their sibling for it. Their sibling starts crying, and they've got the toy, and they're happy, and they're off playing. The parent comes in, don't you realize that you've hurt your brother or sister? And they're just like, what are you talking about? I have the toy, I'm having a great time. And so they don't understand that other people's perspectives, or the fact that they can hurt other people, just hasn't happened yet. So once that has formed, the sense of self is formed, we are then going to begin to develop the theory of the mind. And the theory of the mind is just the recognition, okay, I'm not the only person with thoughts, feelings, and emotions. there are other people with thoughts, feelings, and emotions as well. And as a part of that, we have what is known as animistic thinking, where we have children who are using the theory of the mind and applying it to everything. I tripped over the rug, and now I'm angry at the rug because the rug tripped me on purpose. I have stuffed animals, and they have names, and they have lives, and I pretend and play, and they have thoughts, feelings, and emotions. This is animistic thinking. This expression of the theory of the mind out to basically everything. So finally, we have centration. So centration is the ability to solve problems. But this ability the children are only able to do it from one angle. So they are able to solve issues and problems, but they only solve those problems from one angle. Think about your ability to solve problems. You can look at it from all these different angles. You can understand things from different sides. Children are just beginning to figure out how to solve this. So let me kind of show you a bit of what is going on with this picture here. So you have 2 cups of equal orange juice. This looks like orange juice, okay? So you have 2 cups of orange juice that are the exact same height. You ask the kid, okay, which of these cups has more, or do they have the same? And they're like, they totally have the same. Then you get a glass that is much thinner, and you fill it with juice, and the juice goes up much higher. Okay, there you go. This is okay, and then this is gone now. Okay, so we took this orange juice and we poured it into that beaker, and so then you ask the kid, okay, which is greater, this orange juice or this orange juice? And the child is generally going to pick, especially if they're in centration, they're going to pick this one on the right. And the reason for that is because they are still developing their ability to problem solve, and problem solving can only be solved from one angle. And that angle is how tall the water is, or the juice is. Okay. Another thing you can do, you can take some coins. Okay. You take like 5 coins, and you line them up, and you ask them the same question. All right, which row has more? Does this row have more? Does this row have more? And they'll get it right. They'll be like, they have the same. Okay? And then what you do is you take these outer coins and you spread them out. You go like this, you go like this, you go like this, and you go like this. And then you ask, which row has more? And very likely they will pick this row. And that is because it is wider. Kids just don't have the ability to monitor and understand things. Like that's just how they solve it. They can only solve it from one thing. Now, the big thing that we are missing here is the fact that, wait a minute, I literally took the orange juice, I showed it to you, and then I took it right in front of your face and I poured it into the big beaker. Why didn't you get that? And this is what is known as conservation. The child has not developed conservation yet. So conservation is basically the ability that the person is able to determine that a certain amount of like the stuff that happens in front of them, like it's the ability to rewind the tape. That just because I took a beaker of a certain size and poured it into another one doesn't mean that it actually changes. And that the thing that happened right in front of me, like for all of us, we'd be like, I just saw you do it. I don't have to measure anything. I just saw you change it. I know it's the exact same amount. And so this is something that they haven't developed yet, and they begin to develop during this period of time. Okay. So once we're out of the pre-operational stage, we move into the concrete operational stage. Now, the concrete operational stage is a little more boring, but the major thing that you are getting from the concrete operational stage is this idea of logic. They have spent years and years asking questions about the world, getting answers about their questions, and creating a framework for how the world works. And so children create this framework of what the world is like. And so when presented with problems, they solve it based on that framework. And so you will see children who do the exact same problem with the orange juices, and one pours in. They very easily explain exactly what's going on because they understand what's happening. They have what is known as decentration, where they can solve problems from different angles and understand what's going on. And so overall, they're very logical. However, one of the things that they really struggle with is abstract thoughts. And this is terrible. There you go. Abstract thoughts. Okay? So when we're talking about abstract thoughts, we are talking about things that don't fall within the logical puzzle of their world, the logical framework of their world. And so abstract things could be anything depending on what has been built for them. So silly example, but my sister grew up on Disney movies and Disney princesses. And so when she was around this age and we told her, hey, like, you know, you're not going to marry a prince and live happily ever after, she was just like, no, yeah, yes, I will. That's crazy. Like, I'm a Disney, you know, I'm a princess, and that's how life works. And so she's happily married now to a wonderful gentleman who is not a prince. But that was just something that was outside of her realm of, you know, what makes sense during that time. She had a very specific constructional framework of how her life was going to go. So that's concrete operational stage. And lastly, we will finish up with the formal operational stage. This is easily the most boring. This is where you are able to develop thoughts on morality. You're able to think about abstract concepts. You're able to think logically, write big papers, solve math equations, and there you go. You are where you are. Congratulations. It's very boring here. Piaget didn't really do a lot of work past this. His major contributions kind of laid within working with children. Now, I want to just kind of end on this one thing. And if you remember, Piaget's work looked like a staircase. And you had, you know, sensorimotor, preoperational, concrete operational, and the formal operational. And so Piaget believed that, you know, we worked inside one, got it done, went to the next one. Worked on that, then jumped to the next one. And what we have found through a lot of research is that while we go through these stages very much like Piaget said, it's more of a progression. We kind of slowly progress up these stages. There's no like, all right, I'm in the formal operation or the concrete operational stage now. I'm working on this, this, and this. Nope, it's really just kind of this progressive step. Okay, so that is Piaget's cognitive development. Thank you very much for your time, and you all have a wonderful day.